The Boston Red Sox are now in last place in the AL East after an 8-3 loss to the Cleveland Guardians on Tuesday night.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I am your host, NESN's Lauren Campbell, and as much as I wish we were talking about good news with the Red Sox, we're just not. I am flying solo today. Jake Ignazuski, Massachusetts Pirates team insider, and my amazing co-host is enjoying the Red Sox game on Big Papi night. Well, he was enjoying the Red Sox game probably until the bitter end. So after going 20-6 in June, the Red Sox, as of July 27th, are 6-16 in July. Oof, to say the very least. Tuesday's game started with a ceremony for David Ortiz to honor his Hall of Fame induction. Theo Epstein was there. John Farrell, Terry Francona obviously was there. And it was just a lot of fun and a really good way to start the night, because no way were they going to lose on Big Papi night, right? Very wrong. Wrong, very wrong. The Yellow City Connect jerseys couldn't help Boston either. They lost 8-3. I believe this was the first time they lost in the yellow jerseys this season. They're 12-3 all time in those marathon-inspired jerseys. Now, a lot didn't go the Red Sox way, which kind of has been the theme of July, but one play in particular from Tuesday night's loss really stood out to me. It was the third inning. The Red Sox were trailing 5-2, so the game still was within reach. Xander Bogaerts took a chance on a flyout to shallow right field. Boston catcher Kevin Plawecki hit the shallow fly ball to Nolan Jones, who nailed Bogaerts at the plate on a very close play to end the inning. They did review it. The call stood. Bogaerts was out. I'm not here to argue whether he was safe or out. He was safe. But this is just basically how the month is going for the Red Sox and really the season, honestly. Alex Cora did defend Bogaerts after the game and taking that chance on that fly ball. He told us after the game, you can't question him. He's one of our best base runners and his instincts are that good. He was out by inches, but he saw what happened out there. We were one swing away from tying the game. The guy made a great throw. They just made a great tag and just got bogey. All around great baseball play. The runner sees him flat-footed. He makes a great throw, and the catcher makes a great tag. Bogaerts did finish the night going 3 for 4 with an RBI, so he's still doing what Bogaerts does and trying to give this Red Sox team a chance to win. Josh Winkowski, on the other hand, he was on the mound for the Red Sox. This was his first start since being activated off the COVID-19 related injured list, and he didn't really do well, if we're just going to be blunt about it, because we're blunt here on Locked On Red Sox. Cora said after the game that he thought his pitches were blending velocity-wise and that everything just really didn't seem to be working for him in the swing and miss department. And Cora said, I believe there was only one, there was no swing and misses. There was only one swing and miss if he was not mistaken. And indeed, he was not mistaken. Winkowski only had one swing and miss on Tuesday. And according to Twitter user Red Sox Stats, if you are not following them, give them a follow. They are wonderful. Just 6.7% of Winkowski's pitches have been whiffs in 2021. That is the worst percentage among the 165 starters that have thrown at least 600 pitches this season. So obviously not a very good stat for Winkowski to be involved with and kind of be in that category there. But he did say after the game that Winkowski said after the game that he felt off, but he did not blame having COVID. He just said his fastball felt a little off. His sinker felt just okay. And it was probably the only thing that was really working. And he said he has to figure something out with the slider. It's just getting sideways and doesn't have a normal shape. He said he wasn't feeling off due to COVID. He's not going to blame that, but it does make you wonder if that has anything to do with it. You don't know what kind of symptoms he had when he had COVID, if he's dealing with kind of anything afterwards, whether that's fatigue, whether that's just anything else like feeling run down or anything. But maybe it is, maybe it isn't. He gave up 5 earned runs through 6 innings, had a walk and a strikeout. And that's that's the way it goes for the Red Sox, right? It's just been such a trying month. And we could say a trying season. I miss the June Red Sox, the 20-6 June Red Sox. And yes, there are several injuries to this team, but you look at other teams that are dealing with injuries. You look at other teams across the AL East, and the Red Sox now at the bottom of the AL East. They are a half game behind the Baltimore Orioles. I know there's still plenty of baseball left to be played, but when you look at how this team is performing, it's just ugly all around. The pitching, it needs help. First base, you need help. Outfield, you need help. This team needs help. And we are going to talk about the help that this team has not gotten since Chaim Bloom took over as chief baseball officer. You're going to hear me rant. You're probably going to hear me get a little angry, which is not too dramatic here. I'm not an angry person, and I will talk about that in the second segment of Locked On Red Sox. But this Red Sox team they look lost, and I think that's kind of the best way to describe it, because this is a tough stretch for them. This homestand is a tough stretch, but they're just not showing. They're not showing hustle. They're not showing heart, and they're not showing anything else that you want to see a playoff team show. They're not going to, who knows if they're even going to make the postseason at this point, but they're not going to get far in the postseason if they get there by playing this kind of baseball. They're not playing smart baseball. They're playing very sloppy baseball. And it's just a very ugly, ugly month for the Red Sox. Getting some of these guys back certainly will help. But with the trade deadline less than a week away, the Red Sox desperately need to do something. Maybe go get Josh Bell for first base, bring in a little bit of reinforcement there. Go get some bullpen help, some outfield depth. Please just get some help. Chaim Bloom, Red Sox fans all around are begging for an ounce of help. And we are going to talk about Chaim Bloom in the second segment of our Locked On Red Sox podcast. There was a report that came out there, maybe a little bit of internal conflict, a little bit of internal negative feelings about the lack of urgency that the Red Sox have been faced with the last few trade deadlines. And they're not really shining right now. The Red Sox are kind of looking dull. But what is not dull is jewelry from Blue Nile. At BlueNile.com, you can celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the custom engagement ring to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a big milestone, find jewelry as unique as whoever you're celebrating with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and the clarity, as well as the setting style. And then Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect engagement ring, meaning each ring is one of a kind. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale, so you can save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, it ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging, so it will not give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece at BlueNile.com. All right, we spent some time talking about the action on the field. Now let's talk a little bit of what's reportedly happening off the field with MLB's trade deadline approaching. It's just 6 days away at this point. It's no secret that the Red Sox need a little bit of help. Bullpen, outfield, first base, those things come to mind. And Red Sox fans saw last year the lack of help that Chaim Bloom went out and got this team. Now, Kyle Schwarber was a great addition to this team. I will always love what he did for the Red Sox. I love how he just embraced the city of Boston, the whole Kyle from Waltham thing. He was a really good addition to this team, but they really needed bullpen help, and they elected to bring in Austin Davis and Hansel Robles. Robles re-signed with Boston in this offseason, and we all know how that ended. He struggled, he got DFA'd, then he got released, end of story. Now, Chaim Bloom has mentioned he wanted to get bullpen help. He's mentioned that a few times in the last few weeks, the few months, but he didn't do it in the offseason. And many fans may be understandably a little bit pessimistic going into this year's trade deadline and what will happen. And apparently, fans aren't the only ones who are agitated. Now, MassLive's Chris Cotillo, friend of the pod here on Locked On Red Sox, reported that there is some internal frustration with Boston's lack of urgency when it comes to trades. Now, I don't think anyone who reads this will be surprised at that. And here is an excerpt from Cotillo's article. It said that patience and perceived lack of urgency, according to multiple sources, has frustrated others in the Red Sox organization. For example, making an early move from Carlos Santana, who was traded from Kansas City to Seattle in late June, could have vitalized the team and improved the roster, much like the addition of Steve Pearce did in 2018. But the Red Sox, as they often have under Bloom, refused to make an aggressive move and stood pat. The decisions Chief Baseball Officer Chaim Bloom has to make in the next few days are not easy ones. He has to decide whether or not he believes in the 2022 Red Sox enough to mortgage some of the club's future, or if he thinks the bad version is closer to its true identity enough to trade away some franchise icons. Of course, those icons, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers. You could even throw Nate Eovaldi in there. I don't know if I necessarily call him a franchise icon, but we will always love him for what he did in 2018 during the World Series, during that marathon 18-inning game. But the biggest thing here is that the Boston Red Sox are not the Tampa Bay Rays. And that is exactly how Chaim Bloom is treating the Boston Red Sox. These are the Boston Red Sox, a storied franchise who is used to winning, who is used to having success, whose fans are used to seeing championship parades, used to long playoff runs, not these kind of longer seasons where it's the help is right in front of you. You have the assets to get that help. And I'm talking about last year. And they're only 4 years removed from their latest World Series title. They should not be this bad. But Chaim Bloom refuses to make the moves that will help this team right now. I think that he's done a fine job rebuilding the farm system, but now a lot of those guys are up here in the big leagues right now, some due to injury, some completely out of their control and the Red Sox control. But they are not ready. And this all goes back to Bloom never getting the proper help. He has not gotten the Red Sox the proper help since he took over as the chief baseball officer after the Red Sox parted ways with Dave Dombrowski. Now, Dave Dombrowski and Chaim Bloom are two very, very different people. We knew that when Chaim Bloom was hired, but the least Chaim Bloom could do is get some godforsaken help for this Red Sox team. Alex Cora said this in 2019, that there's only so much he can do with the guys in front of him. That sparked a red flag for me right there, because that just goes to show me that he knows what this Red Sox team needs. And also, he's not getting the help that Alex Cora needs to put the proper team on the field. He can only do so much with the guys in front of him. And if Chaim Bloom doesn't give him the proper help, we can't be mad at Alex Cora. Sure, he makes some questionable in-game decisions, but every year that passes that Chaim Bloom just did not do anything at the trade deadline. And I know he wasn't with the team in 2019 during that 2019 season. You just have to wonder, like, what are you doing? What is your end goal here? Like I said, he did great rebuilding this farm system. He did a really good job doing that. There's some great prospects. There's a lot of amazing players down in Worcester. Some, like I said, are up here, but there's a lot of hope for the future. But what have you done to help this team in the now? This is a huge deadline for Chaim Bloom, and I think this really could make or break him with some Red Sox fans. And I think that he's on thin ice for a lot of fans already. I don't know what's going to happen at the trade deadline. I mean, he could unload JD Martinez. He can unload Nate Eovaldi. Maybe he could try to get rid of Kike Hernandez. I know that will be a little difficult with how much he struggled this year, plus being on the 60-day IL. I believe it's August 7th that Kike Hernandez can come back at the earliest. And then you potentially have the trades of Xander Bogaerts. Who knows if they're going to get rid of Xander Bogaerts? Sam Kennedy did tell WEEI's The Greg Hill Show on Tuesday that there's been no internal discussions with him or Rafael Devers about trading them. So I guess that's a good thing, but it's also, again, what are you doing to get those guys help to build around them? And maybe not even this season. Maybe you're looking more toward 2023, and that's fine. But I think Red Sox fans deserve a little bit of transparency after Chaim Bloom just has refused to make certain moves and refused to get the Red Sox help that they have so desperately needed the last few seasons. Now, maybe you have a good feeling about where Juan Soto will end up, or if the New York Yankees will land Andrew Benintendi at the MLB trade deadline, or maybe you have no idea about any of those odds. But even if you do, even if you don't, be sure to head over to BetOnline to get all of the latest news on all those odds. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can also find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, the upcoming trade deadline. NFL training camp officially kicks off today for all NFL teams. We're so excited over here in Boston for the New England Patriots to be back in action. NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. Everything has you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. As always, we're going to end the show on the Mental Health Minute. And I came across a quote today as I was just kind of doom scrolling through my phone this morning. And it said, "You always pass failure on the way to success." And that really resonated with me because it took me a very long time to get to my position where I am today with NESN. I heard a lot of no's. I had a lot of feelings of failure because I was blogging for free. I was working part-time, full-time, everywhere in between time just to make ends meet, to pay my bills, pay my car. And I just wondered, when the heck am I ever going to be able to get paid for my writing? And there was a lot of failure along the way. And I learned through that journey that failure indeed is normal. And a lot of people go through that. And even though it's really hard to see past it, just because you hear no, whether it's about a job that you wanted or no in any matter, doesn't always mean forever. Just because you hear no from a certain job doesn't mean you won't work for them down the road. Or it also doesn't mean that you don't have something better waiting for you. And I know it's hard to see that in the moment. It's hard to, once you hear no from a job, I keep using that as an example. It's hard to see, well, what's next? Well, what is better for me? There is always something better down the road. If you can't see it right now, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. And failure will be part of your journey, but it makes your journey that much better. And when you do hear yes, and you do get the job, you get that break that you've just wanted so badly, you get to look back on your failure and be like, this is exactly why that failure happened. We will end that show on that note. Thank you for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Rate, review, and subscribe to Locked On Red Sox right here on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast is where you can find us. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well at LO_Red Sox. Follow Jake at Jake Iggy. He will be back for tomorrow's episode. And then there's me at Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren 4 R's. Be sure to check out all the other shows across the Locked On Network. Locked On Yankees, Locked On Astros. Everyone does such a great job here bringing you baseball content Monday through Friday. And now that you've made Locked On Red Sox your first listen, head on over to Locked On MLB to make it listen number 2 of your day. Friend of the pod, friend of mine, Paul Francis Sullivan, just call him Sully. He brings you his unique perspective using humor, using knowledge of baseball's past and present, everything in between. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Have a great day. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll end this show as we always do. Let's go, Red Sox.